Hi, everybody. This is Lindsay with Birmingham Art Crawl, and I am here today with Angela. Angela, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Oh, I'm so excited about this. Definitely
I
gives me like
know. So,
a chance to like dress up and everything. So it's great.
I know. Well, right before we started recording, she and I finally got to introduce ourselves to each other because this is actually our first time meeting. Um,
Yes.
was supposed to participate at Birmingham Art Crawl earlier this year, in I think March.
hmm
We had to cancel. So, and of course, we're not having it again until next March, which means we're taking an entire year off, which seems completely bizarre. But I'm still in love with her work, and so I'm excited to learn more about her and her process today. So, Angela, do you have anything to just say right off the bat about like who you are, your background?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, like Lindsay said, I'm Angela Santiago. I'm from Birmingham area and still live in Birmingham. I actually live in Woodlawn, which gives way to why I've named my business Woodlawn Jewelry Co.
Mhm.
And a little bit more about my background. I'm an art teacher by trade. So during the
Okay.
day, I'm an art teacher for elementary students, K through 5. And I grew up, my mom was an art teacher. She's also an artist. And so I was really like influenced by like that whole like scene as it is. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more about like my background though, like getting into actually becoming like a creator has been really new for me. Like I've loved
Oh,
art.
okay.
I grew
Mm-hmm.
up with art
Mm-hmm.
teacher, but like actually like making it something that like I would sell is very
Right.
new. And that's just like who I am like as a person. Like I've always a little bit shy, a little bit like, is this good
Yeah.
enough? Or is that, just keeping things to myself. And, I've
Mhm.
kind of gone on this like path of growth and
Yeah,
it has
I
been really
understand that. I
exciting.
understand that. Most of the work that I grew up around some creative people as well, and have always dabbled with art, but never really considered myself an artist. Um,
hmm
I have an art degree and still don't consider myself an artist, but
Yeah.
never really sold my work, but maybe a few times. Most of the time I barter it, give it away,
Yes.
like keep it, throw
You're
it
like, I'll just,
away. You know what I mean? It's for me, it was always sort of just more of like the process of creating it
yes.
behind it than necessarily making a profit from it. But, I actually have made porcelain jewelry earrings in my
I
time
love
in
those
life.
looks. I love that.
And I have about 200 pairs upstairs that are fired and ready to go. So, like, I understand
Yeah.
sort of what sort of what you're saying.
Yeah, it's almost like I've heard like the term like almost like imposter syndrome before, where you're like,
Mhm.
okay, I make art, but like, am I an artist? Like, do I count myself as a
Yeah.
scene? Because it's just so hard, like, especially like with social media and seeing this or that, like, there's always just going to be someone doing something a little different or, already been doing it for years. And so they already have that experience. And it's just hard. Like, uh, you know, I won't get into all of that, but it really can just like mess with you mentally for sure. And so,
Mhm.
um, really kind of
Yeah.
like my background was just making these for myself. Like I was just like, okay, I want this pair of earrings or I want that. And then
Yeah.
finally my
That's sort of
friends,
what was doing too.
yeah,
When I started making my porcelain earrings, like I was like, I like geometric little earrings. And so I'm gonna
yeah.
make some little geometric earrings. And then I
And
love them.
And you're like, that is like awesome. First of all, like after this, I would really love to see your work because I love porcelain jewelry. Like, especially like necklaces. I used to like collect like porcelain
Okay.
from. I used to live in Tuscaloosa, so there was a vendor in Kentucky that would sell these
Mhm.
porcelain necklaces, and so I really loved them. So I would love to see
Mhm.
your earrings.
Okay, well, let me get some fired.
So
Yeah,
for
how's
later, but
that
yeah,
check
for sure. Like that's kind of like
out?
my background. It's kind of weird, like even like doing this right now. But you know, like a lot of my friends and family are like just approaching me. It's like, can you make this for me, or can I buy this from you? And so really just their encouragement and support was like, okay, well, you know, I'll start an Instagram and we'll just see where it goes. You know, like
Well,
maybe I'll try and market and see what happens.
yeah, well, you've been doing a great job on social media.
Thank you.
So your interest in jewelry or design and accessories is purely just you wanting to accessorize for yourself. You don't have any design background whatsoever.
Yeah, it's kind of
I
crazy.
mean, that's
I
okay.
do not have a design background. Actually, like in college, I studied art history. I was an art history major. I had started grad school to become an art historian. It's like I want to teach on the collegiate level.
Yeah,
And
me
then
too.
like I got to the it's kind of crazy. It's almost a little embarrassing, but whatever. I got to the last semester and I was like, I don't want to do this. And
That
so
happens so many times.
yeah, and so I dropped out. I was like, okay, maybe I should have just like finished that last semester, but whatever. Is what it is. Anywho,
Hindsight is not 2020.
not 2020. Uh, so, you know, like I started in that field, and then I finally did go back and get my master's for art education because it's like I still want to
Okay,
teach,
yeah.
but you know, like I don't really want to write papers all the time. I kind of want to be
Right,
more involved and make stuff and, you know, be
right.
on the other side of art.
Yeah.
And so, you know, just kind of,
So that is your art in a way. So as an art teacher, that,
yeah,
creativity and your is expressed through your lesson plans.
like through my lesson plans. And then
Mhm.
also just, it almost like started like some of my earrings too. There, I started making like art accessories. So I don't think I've ever posted those on Instagram, but I would make like little art palettes and pencils and paintbrushes so I could wear them because you know the little
Yeah.
kindergarten they love
They
that
make
stuff.
them.
And I
Yeah.
love that stuff too. I love cutesy stuff. So I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
this is great.
Yeah. Okay. That's perfect.
I'm like, this is great.
Now, as a non-jewelry designer who has become, well, in my opinion, an awesome jewelry designer,
Thank you.
do you have a favorite like jewelry maker or artist designer or anybody that inspires you or that you follow?
There are a lot of amazing creators on Instagram, and I'm actually part of this one little community. Um, the polymer clay community is really big. There's a lot of people doing it right now. It's awesome. But you know, that's like with any like medium, you're gonna see tons of like acrylic artists or porcelain artists. So
Mhm.
whatever to that. But the really big community that I follow and I love is actually based in Australia. And,
Mhm.
so there's
I
all
love
these
Australia.
and
I find all kinds of really interesting things coming out of Australia. I have to
they
be very
have
honest with
an amazing community there. And so
you.
I follow this one page called Fry Clay, but it's made up of about 10 different Australian makers. And all of their earrings and their art are just super bright and fun with cool colors, eclectic. They use like paint pens to put designs on there, resin. And I'm like, this is awesome. And it's funny because even though like I follow them and their styles truly 100% different than mine. It's just like really inspiring just to see someone like they're making what they love. And so then it inspires me to like make something like that comes to my mind and that I love. And,
Mhm.
you know, it's not the same at all, but, you know, it's still inspiring.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, when you are making your designs, like what is your thought process? What's your approach? Because for me personally, I'm drawn to like geometric shapes. Now,
Hmm.
yours aren't necessarily more organic shapes, in my
Yes.
opinion. So it's like,
Yeah, it's
do
kind of
you
like
just sort of go with the flow?
I do. Okay, so
I'm very rigid about it.
like the way that I do it, like sometimes like I'm like, okay, I want a certain color. And so then like, okay, how do I make these colors work? So I guess really what I start with first are the slabs of clay. And so, you know, like maybe I want like a terrazzo pattern, which is one that I do
Mm.
a lot. Or yesterday I was playing with some not acrylic, alcohol inks and on clay. And so I start with the slab and then I look at it. I'm like, okay, well, what shapes would look good with this? And so I have,
So
so then I kind of go
we'll
in
let the
there.
material and the color dictate where you go.
The colors, yes, and the pattern dictate where I go. What would fit better with that pattern? Because a lot of times, I want to to actually see what we've made on the earring. So is it going to be big?
Yeah.
Is it going to be small? And of course, we're human, so I'll go through a phase of like I want everything to be arches right now because I'm all about arches. So there was
I like it. I'm with you on that.
yes. So then sometimes it is dictated by that too.
Yeah, so I was just about to ask you, so you may have just answered the question, what has been your favorite design so far?
Well,
Just
I
maybe?
I would definitely make my Tamara arches a lot. I just love them. And then also I would say that my Geo trios is like a little circle and then a half oval and then a larger circle on the bottom. That one's been one that I just consistently make. And so I'm like, well, I guess like that must be one of my favorites because almost every slab ends up having one of these earrings made. And I think it's just because I love having like a contrast of clays too, like a little pattern, maybe something solid. And that particular style really does well because it's 3 different pieces, so you can kind of make
definitely.
a pattern.
And I have to say, I really do like the way that you name your styles.
Yeah.
That it's very clever because it makes me want to pick out a style I want and say, can you make this in green?
And yes.
You know what I mean? Or something like that. It's good.
Absolutely. And I'm glad like you kind
of customizable. You can take commissions, probably, I would imagine.
Oh yes, and like actually, that's one thing I really love to do. Is so I'm always saying like on my Instagram, it's like you can order custom. So if you see a style like even like these right here, it's like well I don't want them in white. Can you do gray or can you do black or 2 colors or a pattern? I love collaborating with people, like making their visions come to life. Even the post I did today. Was a pair of earrings that usually has like a fish hook, but she didn't want the fish hook. She wanted a stud. So I was like, yeah, well, let's make this happen. We're going to have to make it smaller, make it work. And she picked the colors and it's really cool. So it's kind of like this, collaboration.
It is a partnership. Yeah. So it sort of does go back to sort of your roots of where you started making them was like you wanted something for yourself to wear. And so now you're helping other people.
Yeah.
Something that they want to wear. You know what I mean? Which is really cool.
Yeah, right? It is. Yeah. Like, I mean, I didn't ever like put it in those, like, my husband laughs at me. He's like, you're like the worst with words. But I'm like, yeah, that is exactly what it is, Yeah,
no, that's cool. I see it. So before you had mentioned that there was a group of people, like a polymer community. That's a thing.
That is the thing.
I'm excited to learn A1 a little bit more about this polymer community, but A2, like what is it that you love so much about polymer? Like for me, I would imagine it's the malleability or if that's the correct word of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, like it really is.
The limitations are endless probably.
Yeah, I mean, it is incredible. Like I would say like earrings are just honestly scraping the surface of what you could do with polymer clay. I mean, because it really is like, it's not going to be like the same like wetness as like your traditional clay, but you could technically make just about anything you make in clay with polymer. It's just a plastic based clay. And so you are working with something that is almost like, I compare it more to Play-Doh, just the feel of it, like Play-Doh. And then you're making it something that is solid and it's really cool. I would say like there's multiple facets of the polymer community. There's the earring community, then there's the charm community, and then and then there's like the people who are making like sculptures and like these realistic like
Crazy.
dolls and things like that and figurines,
Yeah.
and you're like, wow, that's incredible. Like, how did you do that? It's like, let me see your process video. Actually, my little niece out in California is in the charm community and making like cute little things like little cupcakes and
You guys could team up.
yeah, and so she's making really cute stuff, and
That's cool.
it's just really cool that like this one medium can produce just so many different outcomes.
It makes me want to go out and buy some today.
Yeah.
I might.
Yeah.
So do you like, for me, I enjoy working with clay, like porcelain a lot, because something about working with your hands is sort of therapeutic. Do you find that sort of like cutting it and shaping it and like rolling it is just something?
Yeah, it really like
meditative almost about it.
It is like when I saw that like question, I was like, it's relaxing. It's just relaxing. Like even like if you're sitting in your chair for so long and your back hurts, you're like, I still want to just see how this goes. And so you can kind of like, well, for me, I'm like, yeah, my back's always hurting. But
my back's hurting right now, actually. So I get it.
Yeah. So I'm like, but it's so fun, like just to see like just this process. I mean, almost like creating something from nothing, essentially. And you're like, oh, okay, well, this was just like this, 2-ounce package of clay, and now you have some wearable art, and it's really fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I would definitely say like the term like relaxing comes to mind, and it's
definitely therapeutic.
It's therapeutic and just fun.
Yeah, it's a lot. I have never worked with polymer clay, but I imagine that polymer clay is a lot more therapeutic than porcelain clay.
It's not as messy. Not as messy as working in a clay studio, that's for sure.
Doesn't explode on you.
Doesn't explode.
In pieces.
You're not gonna have all the dust everywhere. Yeah, like that. Actually, you know what? I'm really glad you brought that up, because that was another thing that got me into making polymer clay was that, I was doing paintings at home, but I have 2 toddlers and they would come and paint with me, and there's paint on the carpet, there's paint on the walls. And so I was finally like, I just gotta put this away. Like I gotta have something where I can still create, have like that enjoyment, have fun, be relaxed, but kind of cut down on like the mess level. And like I didn't know that it would be like this tidy, but it's pretty tidy. I mean, you got your little shavings and, sanding drill bits and stuff, but, it's not paint on the carpet. So,
right. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Not an exploded kiln. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
So, that brings me to my next question. So, you are sitting at your desk right now where you make stuff?
Okay. Yes, I am.
So what is like the tool, like the thing that you gotta have at your desk ready to go, or like you can't work, period, in a discussion?
Oh man. Oh. So,
it can be anything, really. It could be like music or a beer. I don't know.
Yeah. Like both. Definitely love to have music playing. But really, like, I guess for sure, I just like being like at my desk, having like all of my things around me. And like this one was one of those questions I was like, oh gosh, which tool? Because like these creative minds are like, what I could do? I could be like a MacGyver. I could make this happen or that happen.
I know what tool it is, I think, in my mind.
Okay. What would you think?
X-Acto knife.
The X-Acto knife. That's a really good one.
I think you can't, as an artist, I don't know, no matter what you do,
you gotta have
your tracks for an X-Acto knife. And if you can't find a good X-Acto knife,
you're like, here, and I've got one on my little tool rack right here. And also, I would say, like, I am probably like a tool hoarder. And like, I had, like, it's almost like buying like school supplies. You're like, oh, I'm so excited. Let me get this new thing. It's like, have 2 sets of this. It's like, why do I have 2 sets? You never know. You might
need to give it to somebody one day. Like,
you just might. What if it breaks? That's how I am. And I'm like, So yeah,
You
like
never know.
definitely like I would say for sure, like you gotta have your blades, you gotta have your X-Acto knife. Um, you can roll your clay by hand, but having a clay roller, keeping it super consistent, and I mean, for
That
me,
really
that was
makes
like
all the difference.
life changing in my earrings because like one thing I really like is to make them really thin so they're lightweight. Like I would say the heaviest pair of earrings I've made to date are like the geode earrings, but they still like as a pair on the card weigh an ounce. So,
Right.
so I
Yeah.
mean, like that's like the heaviest pair I've made, and so making it where it's thin but not breakable too.
Oh yeah. Well,
That
it's
clay
like
roller makes a big difference.
oh yeah, absolutely. Because I hand roll everything with an old fashioned rolling pin or slam it down and on my dining
Yes.
table until it
That's pretty
flattens
fun
out.
too, though, with your regular clay. Oh man, because like every year, like for Christmas with my students, we make little Alabama ornaments. So
Oh
I
yeah.
really like I like because they don't make their slabs. They're in first grade. I make them. I'm like, this is fun. I'm like, I like making this.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
about as far as I go with like my personal like clay making. I mean, my mom actually is a great ceramic artist.
Oh,
And
okay.
so,
So,
I,
so you have an idea, you
so
know.
I have an idea, but it's very humbling. It's a very humbling thing. Like whenever I make something, I'm like, wow, that looks like it looks like a high school project. I don't know. I've never gotten to the point. Like I think it's just so hard getting it like like maybe it's a perfectionist thing. I don't know what it is. I'm like, ah.
It's hard. I think making earrings or accessories is hard because you
Yeah.
want them to look perfect, but they're handmade,
Hmm.
so they can never be perfect.
They can never be, but yeah, and that
Can
is like
never be
that.
perfect, and every pair is going to be different. They're, your
Mhm.
factory,
Yes,
right?
yeah, because
You
like, and
know?
that's kind of like why you're buying handmade too. Is like you don't want it to be a factory. Like, um, even like with my slabs, I would say that yeah, there's very similar, but none of them are identical. I would
Oh
say.
yeah. Oh yeah. I would be very impressed.
Yeah.
So I have one final question for you.
Yeah.
And to all your doubters out there, did you ever have like any doubters and people were like, you're going to be making earrings and selling them on the internet? Like, what's your advice for them now, Or do you have any advice for people like you who have a full-time job and have children and this, that, but are like struggling to like
Mhm.
find an outlet to make something?
Yeah, actually, I really liked this question. I like this one because really it's not necessarily like doubters or it's more as like people like being like, okay, that's great, but like not thinking more of it. But I would say like the biggest doubter like throughout my entire life, and like maybe this is cheesy or whatever, it's always been like myself.
Mhm.
And I would say that like to anyone who is like me, who's just like kind of like that has that imposter syndrome, um just kind of just do it. It doesn't matter if it's good or not. One of my favorite artists, I love pop art, I love modern art. Andy Warhol's like, who cares if people think your art's good? While they're deciding if it's good or not, just keep making more. And so like, it's just like one of my favorite quotes to like live by is like,
Yeah,
you know what,
okay.
you're right. Just keep doing it. If it's not the
Yeah.
best, whatever, like who are they to decide that? I mean, like if you're proud of it, if it's what you can do, if you're doing to the best of your abilities and like continually trying and practicing and
Yeah.
growing, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're not number one or
Right.
whatever. So like
Right.
maybe
Yeah.
that's like my like teacher hurrah in me too, but I'm like, yeah,
Well,
just do
you're
it.
really good at going out of an interview with a teacher hurrah
Yeah,
moment.
teacher hurrah, like just do it.
I feel inspired.
Yes.
I'm
Awesome. I'm glad.
gonna fire those earrings up. I'm gonna try to remember what I glazed them all to be.
That's
And
right.
try to put them together, and I'm gonna give you a pair.
I would love to see them, and
I
just give
even know
yourself a
what
little hurrah and just go.
okay, I'm gonna get back at it.
Yes. But yeah, that to me, like, that's like just the biggest thing. It's just, I definitely think too in our society, we just don't allow ourselves to be amateurs either. Like, once you start
Yeah.
something, you just have to be 100%. And like, I find it so like encouraging. Like, even looking at my earrings from last August when I was like, yeah, I'm getting good at this. I'm like, oh, like like it's like encouraging to see that growth, and it's exciting to see like what next August is going to look like. I'm like, man, I'm going
Yeah.
to look at this and see
Yeah.
where we are.
Because
So,
I mean, trends change, and you're
yeah.
gonna change, and so what
Mhm.
colors you're drawn to, and like all
Yeah.
kind of stuff will sort of evolve over time, and
Yeah,
that's
it's so
kind
true.
of exciting, and it's terrifying too,
Yes.
but it's a fun process, I think.
It
So
really is. I mean, and it's just as long as like you're just keeping it about like I mean, like always keeping it about what you like to do too, I think is a good way to like really track your progress and your growth, and just make
yeah.
it fun and enjoyable, and it's just humbling that other people enjoy it too.
I think it's
Exciting.
really hard for artists, or makers who like to make things for themselves,
Mhm.
you know, like how I mentioned, like I've never really sold anything before, like, but I don't really care about that at
Yeah,
all.
you're like it is,
And every time I tried to and it didn't work, I was like, okay.
you're
You
like, well, that's
know, it
on
sounds like a
him.
really lousy attitude. Like I know
Yeah.
how it sounds, but it wasn't like in a way that like hurt my feelings,
Yeah, it is.
because it wasn't created about whether or not they wanted to buy it.
Exactly. And so it's really nothing against you at all. Really, it isn't. It just,
Right. Yeah.
going
So
back to what we
it's,
said earlier, it is what it is sometimes. Like, some of my
yeah.
favorite earrings, truthfully, have never sold. So I'm like, well, there you are. And I'm like, whatever.
Isn't that
I'll
crazy
keep them.
though? Like, I have so many earrings that I made that I tried to give away or sell or whatever, and nobody wanted them. And I was like, fine. I made them. I like them.
Yeah, so I have a whole box downstairs of stuff. I'm like, oh, I guess I have to keep this. So
You can have like a flashback sale or something.
exactly. It's like, hey, look at these guys. Vintage.
One day they'll be worth something.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. Hold on
And
to them. Keep them safe.
originals. All
Yeah.
right. Well, it was so nice to finally meet you,
Yes, you
and
too.
hopefully we get a chance to connect in real life
Hmm.
for March of 2021. But if not,
If
I'll
not,
see you
March
in
of
March
2021.
2021.
I
And
mean, the way the past 6 months have gone by,
it's really
it'll,
going to be here any minute.
yeah, it'll be here any minute.
Seriously.
It's probably tomorrow. So,
Exactly.
so,
Well, thank you so much for spending your afternoon with me. And
oh, I appreciate
okay.
it. Thank you for the opportunity. You have a good day too.
You're welcome. Bye bye.
Bye.